What's up, investors? It's the Russian dude. We have reached a pivotal moment in Europe's modern history. Recent events forced the entire continent to rethink its assumptions about peace, security and military readiness. Vladimir Putin's decision to unite forces with North Korea for military assistance in the Ukrainian war have sent shockwaves through Europe, revealing uncomfortable truths about its defense capabilities. This development has not only highlighted the scale and consequences of the ongoing war, but has also exposed unfortunate vulnerabilities within Europe's own military structures. Today, let's explore the historical context that led to this situation, examine the current challenges facing Europe, and discuss the steps being taken to address them. And guys, I want to make it clear since the beginning, you already know my stance on the war and which side I support. This is not going to change. But some things that I will mention in today's video might seem that I'm spreading ridiculous Russian propaganda. Well, I'm not. I'm just going to state the facts. I cannot be only one-sided blind news reporter who always reports on unconditional superiority of one side, closing eyes to the development of the other. This is a huge mistake in any conflict. Nobody should ever underestimate the enemy. This is why I think it is very important for us to talk about these potential issues, which might become a wake-up call for some. But this is a necessary conversation if we want to achieve our common and end goal of winning. For over 3 decades following the end of the Cold War, Europe embraced an era of unprecedented peace and prosperity. The fall of the Berlin Wall and the dissolution of the Soviet Union started a new chapter in which the prospect of large-scale conflict seemed increasingly remote. The European Union itself was born out of the desire to prevent future wars by intertwining the economies and industries of historical enemies. The European Coal and Steel Community, the EU's European Union's predecessor, aimed to bind Germany, France and other nations so closely together that war would become not only unthinkable, but materially impossible. The goal was to create such a reliance and cooperation between the countries that any hostilities would essentially cripple the aggressor as well. And it worked. During this period, instead of internal struggles, the focus shifted to fighting against global terrorism, which was perceived as the primary threat to developed nations. The attacks of 9/11 reinforced this perspective, leading to international efforts to address non-state actors rather than prepare for state-on-state warfare. European nations adjusted their defense policies accordingly, scaling back conventional forces and reallocating resources to other sectors. The resources that would have been spent otherwise on military and defense went towards roads, transportation, factories, engineering, science, public services and so on. These are billions of extra dollars every year we're talking about that were previously unavailable. The possibility of internal war within Europe became almost inconceivable. Economic integration, open borders and shared institutions created a sense of unity. External threats, particularly from Russia, were downplayed, despite occasional aggressive rhetoric and military posturing. European leaders largely regarded such shows of strength as domestic propaganda intended for internal consumption, believing that mutual economic interests would prevent any serious confrontation. After all, no matter how much Putin might claim he does not like the West, a big part of Russia's early 2000s development was thanks to this very same West. This confidence extended to the belief that Russia's reliance on European markets for oil and gas exports created a mutual dependency that promised peace. The independence was seen as a deterrent against aggression, reinforcing the conviction that Europe at last had entered an era of lasting tranquility, which was so needed, since this continent went through never-ending wars and regional conflicts since the very first nations settled there, which is no surprise. Some countries are so small and they're so tight next to each other, no wonder territorial disputes happened all the time. So finally, Europe received its long-awaited peace. Which might not seem long comparing to thousands of years of history, but there was an entire generation or two of new Europeans who were born not knowing what war is. This mindset of peace led to significant underfunding of the military sector, with defense budgets shrinking and armed forces downsized. The emphasis was on diplomacy, economic development, and social welfare rather than military readiness, which is the ultimate goal for the entire world to achieve, but we are not living in a perfect world, at least not yet. The annexation of Crimea by Russia in 2014 was a turning point that many in Europe failed to fully understand. While it signaled a more aggressive Russian foreign policy, the full implications were not immediately acted upon. Putin was not punished enough. His war crime was simply let go. It was the escalation of the conflict in Ukraine in 2022 that shattered whatever remained of the illusion of long-lasting peace. As war erupted on the continent's doorstep, European nations were forced to confront the uncomfortable reality of their own military capabilities. The assessments revealed that many European militaries had become what some analysts called Potemkin armies. And paradoxically, this term has Russian origins. And it basically means is a strategy which is defined as the following: building just enough of a capability to create the illusion that much more lays behind it. These forces appeared grand in official records, but were in reality undermanned, under-equipped, and underprepared for sustained combat operations. Critical assets like battle tanks, fighter jets, and naval vessels were often outdated or non-operational at all due to years of neglect and insufficient investment. Training programs have been scaled back, and logistical support systems were inadequate for rapid development. The situation was further exaggerated by the diminishing popularity of the defense industry. Over the years, talented engineers and scientists who might have contributed to military research and development were drawn to other technological sectors. They channeled their expertise into creating the digital innovations that have revolutionized modern life: smartphones, software apps, advanced computing and coding and things like this. And once again, that's how world should be, at least in my personal opinion. People should spend money and resources working together, creating new things, improving lives for the future generations, not looking for more innovative ways to kill each other for a dozen kilometers of land, which is going to end up so destroyed, devastated and burned out that no life will exist there for the next several years. So what was the point of this all along? So yeah, this shift towards peaceful evolution benefited society in countless ways, but left the defense sector struggling to keep up with the technological advancements. The result was the military apparatus was not prepared to address modern threats. The gap between the perception of military strength and the actual capability was huge, leaving Europe vulnerable in a rapidly changing environment. Compounding Europe's internal challenges was the shifting landscape of international alliances, particularly the relationship with the United States. For decades, the US has been the cornerstone of NATO, providing significant military might and serving as a deterrent against potential aggressors. No country in the world in their right mind would want to attack NATO, knowing very well that they will have to fight against the strongest military in the world, the Americans. To make it even worse for the potential aggressors, according to NATO's Article 5, an attack against any NATO member is considered an attack against NATO itself, and all the members should combine their war efforts and defend one another. As a result, European nations operated under the assumption that, in the event of a crisis, the US would come to their aid, allowing them to maintain smaller defense budgets and focus on domestic priorities. However, recent political developments in the US have introduced uncertainty into this long-standing regiment. Voices advocating for a reduced American role in international affairs have gained support, questioning the value of existing alliances and the financial burden they impose. Statements suggesting that NATO is obsolete or that member nations are not contributing their fair share have raised concerns about the future of US commitments. Even though the US is still the most powerful NATO member and has not refused the support, just the change in narrative already has significant consequences for European security. The possibility that the US might hesitate or even decline to intervene in the European conflict forces a re-evaluation of strategic dependencies. And it also allows aggressors like Putin to be a little bit more daring in their endeavors. testing the limits just a little bit further with every decision he takes. Trust in the automatic invocation of NATO's Article 5 has been shaken as well. European leaders must now consider the scenario of confronting threats without guaranteed American support, adding urgency to the need for enhanced self-reliance. Yet, there are good things as well. The induction of Finland into NATO provides both the challenges and opportunities in this new era. Finland, which has maintained high standards of defense capabilities through mandatory military service and consistent investment, brings valuable assets to the alliance. The addition of Finland also increased the border between NATO and Russia significantly. So, without a doubt, Putin's goal of not letting NATO expand to the east failed completely. And while Putin's aggression towards NATO still remained more or less the same, there were no sharp remarks towards Finland even after they joined the alliance. Putin knows this is a very strong country, and some activities in the past, which Russian schools conveniently prefer not to talk about, serve as a great reminder that Russia should not mess with Finland. This country serves as a reminder of the importance of sustained commitment to defense and the benefits of a well-trained, well-equipped military force. In response to these sobering realities, Europe is planning on a significant transformation of its defense. Recognizing that military unpreparedness is unsustainable in the face of emerging threats, nations are increasing defense budgets, modernizing equipment, and revitalizing their armed forces. This shift marks a departure from the policies of previous decades and reflects a renewed emphasis on security and deterrence. Investments are being directed towards updating existing military hardware, purchasing and developing advanced technologies, and enhancing rapid deployment capabilities. Collaborative projects are happening to develop next-generation fighter jets, unmanned systems, and cyber defense mechanisms. Training programs are being expanded to rebuild expertise and readiness among military personnel. There is also a growing recognition of the importance of cooperation among European forces. Joint exercises and shared standards are being implemented to ensure that different national militaries can operate seamlessly together if necessary. This approach not only enhances collective defense capabilities, but also strengthens political unity within the European Union and NATO. The unity which was taken for granted for so long. The re-emergence of mandatory conscription in some countries and the reinforcement of reserve forces reflect an understanding that manpower is as critical as technology. By increasing the pool of trained individuals, nations aim to ensure that they can scale up operations rapidly in response to crises. These efforts contribute to a comprehensive strategy that balances immediate needs with long-term resilience. This rearmament is not intended as a provocation as Putin portrays it, but as a means of defending peace through strength. After all, Putin himself claimed that he had to protect Ukrainians by invading Ukraine, so he has no right to complain. European leaders are aware of the dangers of escalating tensions and are pursuing diplomatic solutions whenever possible. But they also recognize that credible defense capabilities are essential to deter aggression and preserve stability. Well, there you have it, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed today's episode and you want to see more videos like this, please like this video and subscribe to my channel. If you wish to support my work, there are links down below. Thanks so much for watching. See you tomorrow. We won't succumb to their tricks, the facade they try to sell, their twisted words and feeble claims on us all they cannot quell. We see through their lies, their feeble attempts to sway.